We know is Ahlul Bayt through Ahkam Akli.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, viewers of Imam Hussain TV. First of all, I'd like to give condolences on the shahadat of Bibi Fatima Zahra alayha salam to all viewers all over the world. Tonight's topic is simply put as Islamic divorce. Often we hear of very sad cases, someone's best friend, a sister, a brother, an uncle or an aunt, young or old, who actually have to endure a painful time in their life by undergoing through divorce. Certain people feel and may actually encounter injustices. However, tonight, let's actually look into this subject and a topic that we'll have to actually explore in some depth today and inshallah maybe next week and also the following week. With me tonight, I'm glad to have also on the show Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshwani. Assalamu alaikum, Dr.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's a privilege once again to have you here on
Thank you so much.
Actually a very, very deep and hopefully a meaningful topic. Inshallah, with your expertise and your knowledge and wisdom, we can inshallah impart a lot of advice inshallah to viewers, because this is a topic that is surrounding everyone, in every community, locally and internationally. So without further ado, I'd like to just start off, as it were, just by briefly, perhaps if you can shed light on the underlying tones, as it were, or the issues inevitably that lead to a divorce in our marriage system. What could they be, and what encounters that people actually experience?
This no doubt is one of the most sensitive topics to discuss, and I think anybody who's been involved in a divorce will realize the sensitivities involved. There are many who have been in traumatic experiences, and in no way whatsoever tonight do we mean to judge anyone, or do we mean to belittle what people have gone through. And that's why this is going to be the first in a number of parts on understanding the social, historical, as well as legal repercussions of divorce within the religion of Islam. Because in the forthcoming parts, we'll also look at what happens after the divorce, what's happening with custody, what's happening in terms of finances, what's happening with family relations, and so on. So that will be coming in the forthcoming parts. But you notice clearly from the outset that the religion of Islam, in contrast to other religions which may not have allowed divorce to take place, rather other religions such as Christianity may have spoken about an annulment of a marriage rather than divorce.
Okay.
But the religion of Islam recognized that these two, who may have come from completely different backgrounds, there is a possibility that things may go wrong, as well as there's a possibility that you may have Khadija and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, or Fatima and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. So when the religion of Islam was quite practical on this front in allowing a divorce to take place, and hence within the Holy Quran there are not only discussions of talaq in, for example, chapters such as chapter 2 of the Holy Quran, for example, from verse 228 to 231, or for example in chapter 66 of the Holy Quran, but there's actually a surah called Talaq.
Surah Talaq, yes.
And if you were to ask many Muslims in the world today, have you read the surah that is actually titled divorce, I don't think there are many who even knew there was a surah called talaq.
Yes.
When you're bringing these chapters together, what you have is a general legal as well as a historical understanding of what's taking place in the nascent Muslim community in terms of marriage and relations as a whole.
Right.
And how the reality is that since the beginning or the onset of the religion of Islam until today, the gender that has been the most oppressed when it comes to divorce, either by culture or by certain, I would even say, legal statutes and principles which have been given to us in mainly patriarchal societies, is the female.
Yeah.
There are sadly many cases in the Muslim world where females are oppressed, where their lives have been destroyed, where any complaint that they even tried to make about the abuse that they received fell on deaf ears. And I do hope that tonight we do something revolutionary
Inshallah.
in the Muslim world and humanitarian as well, and that is to try and speak not only on scenarios where divorce can take place, but also on rethinking in the forthcoming parts as well the rights of divorce when somebody is going through a very difficult and turbulent relationship.
Yes.
This is something quite innovative because
Okay.
hither to this point, the whole idea of divorce is husband has a right to divorce you. You as the lady have no right, and if you do have a right, you're going to have to give everything away that you have and get on with your life.
Yeah.
Possibly ridiculed. And that's for the fortunate few who have parents who may support them getting divorced.
Yes.
There are those out there who don't have the background, the basis, the parents to be able to move on in their life. But then we have to balance this with the traditions that are normally thrown at us
Right.
in the annals of Islamic history. Traditions such as the arsh of God shakes when a divorce takes place, or that the halal, which is the worst of them in the eyes of God, is divorce. And so when you see these traditions, you're then stuck. That on the one hand, the Lord, while allowing divorce, looks at it in a way which is seen as being
frowned upon.
Yeah. And then of course the male dominates, and the male looks at it and says, well, I don't mind such narrations because they suit me. Because I have to give you the divorce for you to get out of this relationship. And if I don't want to give you the divorce, I will make you go through hell.
Yeah.
And so there's a number of issues which I'm sure we'll come to.
Sure, alhamdulillah. Thank you for that breakdown. In the West, a number of marriages outside of Islam, but let's just make it balanced now. In Islam, can there be a prenuptial agreement in the nikah, prior to the nikah, as it were?
A prenuptial agreement, if a person decides on a prenup, for example, the lady decides in the prenup that she wants to have the right of divorce, this can be done.
It can.
You can have a prenup agreement as well that your husband cannot be in another relationship without asking for your permission.
Right.
So the prenup, it's up to the couple. If you two, for example, are an engaged couple,
okay,
and you decide that there are certain areas you want to agree on beforehand. We see the prenups occurring in many parts and many communities in the world today generally. It's not just Islamic, especially if you're a billionaire. You're always trying to look after the prenups. And sometimes you even see these Hollywood actors.
Protecting assets.
And actresses, absolutely right. They protect their assets because they're thinking, if we're going to break up, you can't have access to my house in Manhattan, you can't have access to my house in Beverly Hills or in Paris or in London. So they make these prenups. So likewise, Islamically speaking, before a couple decide that they want to get married, they can also have a prenup.
Right.
And that prenup will entitle, for example, the lady will say that I want the unilateral right to divorce, which normally is associated for the men. Islamically, that lady can say, well, before that, I want to make sure that I have that as well.
Okay, and just continuing on from the prenuptial agreement, is it advised to have it actually? What is the consensus?
The thing is, I wouldn't necessarily say there's traditions that are speaking about the istihbab of having a a prenup.
Yeah.
And I would say on a practical level, if from the outset, for example, you have somebody telling her fiance that, listen, I want a prenup now. Now I've got the right to divorce. Then already the relationship is quite, it's quite a rocky start to the relationship.
Okay.
Because I think as soon as someone hears that, you hope that you're going to live with each other. Sickness and health, good times and bad, and so on. And then all of a sudden you're told, well, have you put down that I can divorce at any time? Now sometimes I could see where those ladies may be coming from, because they've seen their mum in a very abusive relationship, let's say. Seen the father beat the mother black and blue. And when that happens, you'll have that situation where she's thinking, hold on a minute, I don't ever want to be in that predicament.
No.
Where dad has literally told mom, what are you going to do about this? Even if I am going to beat you, your family are not going to let you get divorced.
You're helpless.
The community will frown upon you. And there are certain countries in the Muslim world where divorce is a nightmare. If you look, for example, I'd say if you're looking in Iraq, for example, or you're looking in Pakistan, for example, divorce can be an absolute nightmare, because it really is the end of the world for the ladies in some of those societies. And the men know it. The men know that the legal system works in our favor. I am the man and I have a right for divorce. And now, if I'm not giving you the divorce and you're telling me you're unhappy, what you going to do about it?
Yeah.
The assets in many cases are in my name. It's a tribal society in many cases where the male dominates.
Right.
And so when a person hears about this, you cannot blame some of our, younger sisters who are looking to get married. You can't blame them when they turn around to you and say that, listen, I want a prenup.
Yeah.
Now that likewise works with the ones who are saying to their husbands that I want a prenup that you will not be with anyone else while we're married.
Okay.
Now, I know that this may devastate some guys who are, who are enjoying what they're enjoying on the side. The reality of it is quite clear everywhere, irrespective of your religiosity or your religious standing. You may find that there are people, religious or non-religious, who may have a religion on the side.
Yeah.
Now, someone might see that and say, well, I want to put that down in the prenup. If it's down in the prenup, it's like a contractual agreement.
It is, yes.
And those contracts are binding.
Yeah.
A person can't turn around and say, well, I have my own worldview and that prenup doesn't apply to me. If you two have decided on this, then you have to go ahead with this.
Yeah.
You have to go ahead. So
Right.
I personally remember being involved in a case a few years ago where I didn't recommend that sister in our community to impose this in the prenup, because I said, don't judge every guy by what your father did to your mom. That person who's come in the household doesn't deserve to be frowned upon, because what can also happen is that when I know that this is in the prenup, anything that I sniff where there's just a hint that there may have been a relationship, a hint, well, I have the right for divorce.
Yeah.
And therefore, when I have this right, I may end up, I wouldn't say the word is abusing it, but it may lead me to even investigating further and saying that, how can I, losing trust and so on.
And being suspect.
Being suspect,
even
exactly.
that is spoken of in the Holy Quran.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. We've already got questions coming in, viewers. So one question is from Copenhagen, Fatima. So she hasn't really alluded to her spouse's name. So they've been engaged, but does the engagement, as it were, count as a real nikah, or is the nikah actually part of the actual ceremony itself?
Well, we've been
because in the West, let's be frank.
That's it, yeah.
In today's world, irrespective of what culture you come from, Indian, Pakistani, Iraqi, Iranian, some cultures insist in having a engagement.
Yeah.
And some would say, no engagement, it's not for us, and we would just go for the nikah. So if you can just probably just put it out there, as it were. The engagement and the nikah.
When it comes to the engagement, we're used to this in the Western world.
Yeah.
That someone says, who is this? Say, oh, this is my fiance, for example.
Yeah.
and they say that we're engaged. What that engagement means is that we're together, and there's a marriage to look forward to in the future.
Yes.
Muslims recognize that you cannot just be in any relationship, even if you know you're going to marry that person, without there being a contract.
Absolutely.
But some Muslims out there face a predicament. He, as the father-in-law, has just accepted this boy to marry his daughter.
Yeah.
But the wedding will take place in another 9 months. So what do?
They get engaged.
In that period when they're engaged, some decide to have the nikah or the aqd or the katb kitab in that period.
Right, right. Yes.
The problem with that, remember the wedding's about 9 months away.
Yeah, yeah.
In the eyes of everybody, you're engaged. In the eyes of God, you're married. And that means if a month later, you're engaged, you're not living together, but a month later you decide that this isn't for you, then talaq, divorce, has to be pronounced.
Right.
The community doesn't forgive.
No.
And so the community, when they look at this, what are they going to say? Say this person is a divorcee.
Yeah.
The person's never lived with the girl. The person and this girl have never lived under one roof together.
Yeah.
But because we've decided that a nikah or an aqd takes place, what we end up with is a situation where you have somebody divorced who has never even had a wedding. So someone says, what's the solution? Solution, for example, someone can be involved in a mut'ah.
Yeah.
Now I know whenever we say the word mut'ah, straight away you've got people eyebrows raised, frowning in some cases, because they grew up with this understanding. Mut'ah is when a man who's married is just playing on the side with a temporary relationship. Whereas no, on the contrary.
No.
The temporary relationship practiced in the time of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, his family, by his companions. Now, annulled, prohibited, who did it, we leave that for another day.
Exactly.
The fact is that he allowed this temporary marriage. The Shia call it mut'ah. Others then would have other terms for their relationships different from what was normally seen as the for example, the nikah. Some would say urfi and misyar and mut'ah.
In Egypt.
And I know that many have their legal debates, but if your daughter is now engaged, now obviously her and her fiancé want to go out with each other.
Yeah.
Can't just go out because they're going to get married in 9 months.
No.
Nor do you necessarily want to do the katb kitab or nikah because you know that there will be, if they break up, a talaq, even though there's no wedding done yet because they've done an aqd. So the mut'ah can be done. The mut'ah, what happens in that mut'ah? The father, for example, can set the conditions as to how much they can interact.
Yes, absolutely.
The father can say that I allow you to, for example, to go out with each other because I don't want the community looking at the two of you.
And me being in, having a sort of losing my reputation, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah. So we do this in the proper way.
Yeah.
So I want you two to be together, and I want this all done in the proper way. And the father can say that, for example, you can be together and physically, that guy might want to hug his missus, you know, and that guy might want to kiss his missus.
Sure.
And that person may want to hold the hands of his missus.
Yes.
But the father says that, listen, anything further than that, I'm not allowing.
Yeah.
And so when the father says this, he can make this condition. And they agree a dowry, and they agree a time period.
Yes.
Because they may have come to a conclusion that the wedding will take place, let's say, in December. The family have accepted the boy in January. Yes. So there's still 11 months left until the marriage. And so because of that, in those 11 months, the father can stipulate.
Okay.
And when the father has stipulated this, then this is a proper engagement. What happens if the two of them break up? Nice. So if the two of them break up, they are broken engagement.
Yes, there's no harm.
There's no harm. Because there's no aqd or no katb kitab done in the sense of the permanent marriage.
Absolutely. And also, if I can add as well, you actually mentioned it indirectly, but just for the sake of viewers, mut'ah does not have to be sexual. It can just be for you to be interacted in a halal way, as it were, subject to the permission of the father if the lady is a virgin. So that also in itself is, I think sometimes misinterpreted.
Sure.
We've got another question. And this question is also from abroad. Ali and Sakina, they, let me just paraphrase what they've actually mentioned. They've had their nikah pronounced, but also engaged. So that scenario is also thrown in there. But they haven't consummated the marriage due to whatever reason. Is there an iddah period?
There is no iddah. If the two of you have been involved in the temporary marriage and the permanent marriage.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
So you've got, let's say, someone who's in the temporary marriage, someone who's been involved in permanent marriage. While there has not been consummation, then there is no iddah period.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Viewers, do call in for questions as well. The telephone number is 0203 515 0199. You can also text or WhatsApp your questions on 44079399 917 163. Once again, WhatsApp 44079399 917 163. So now just to continuing on, there's some questions that are coming in indirectly, and they've actually been waiting, as it were. There's a sister, and she mentioned about marrying a man previously, but found out later on, after a duration, that he was impotent. Is this a qualifying factor for divorce? And just before you answer that, do they just break up? What goes on around that scenario?
Yeah, this is a devastating situation for anyone. And there are, sadly, ladies out there who have even spent... I remember a case where there was a lady involved in a marriage. She was involved with a person 6 years. 6 years. He had not consummated the marriage. Now, that is probably the most patient human being. Even Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam will testify to her patience. Because that is absolutely phenomenal. How you're able to be with somebody who for 6 years, there's no consummation. There are others at the moment who have been together for a year, no consummation. There are others who may have been together for 2 weeks, no consummation. Now, each one is different.
Right.
And we have to make a principal point jurisprudentially from the outset.
Okay.
And that is this person aware of their impotency? You married someone.
Yeah.
That person is aware of their impotency or no?
Right.
If the person is aware of their impotency and deceived you, it's different from the one who may be going through a turbulent, stressful time. Let's see the difference between the two. There's someone out there, they've been involved in a marriage, and that marriage they were involved in, they knew very well. They had, for example, erectile dysfunction. They knew very well that there was problems where they were told that they could never have kids and so on. Or that person knew very well that even being aroused by the opposite gender was a problem. There are people out there who will say to you that I just don't have it in me. That when I'm with somebody in the bedroom, when we take off our clothing, I find it disgusting, I find it difficult. They may even want the light switched off and so on. So, when this happens, that person is fully aware.
Right.
Sometimes, sadly, in our communities, what happens is even though the family know this person had an impotency issue in their marriage, they let that person marry somebody else without informing the poor girl that this person, for example, has erectile issues, this person finds it difficult to get aroused and so on. And that is oppression. And that type of person, the moment you realize there's this issue, annulled marriage, divorce takes place.
I see.
That's a different situation because that person's aware of their impotence.
Okay, and just before you continue, sorry, say now, what is just a brief definition of annulment and divorce?
Well, normally what you would have is when a divorce is about to take place. Divorce, what does it mean? When you see talaq in the Arabic language, you look at dictionaries.
To part.
No, something that was shackled and now is freed.
Okay, okay.
Something that was locked and now is to be freed.
I see.
So when the Arabs would talk about the camel and the word divorce or talaq in relation to the camel, the camel is tied up.
Okay.
And then when the talaq is done, that camel is free to go and roam.
Okay.
Rather than being tied up.
Right.
This dunya, for example, is something that shackles us.
Right, yes.
This dunya can encapture us. When Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib says, I've divorced you a three-pronged divorce, of which there is no return, it's not just a matter of I am now untied, but now I'm broken away from you.
Yeah.
I'm free to reach the heights which you were trying to stop in some cases.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So now when we're coming to annulment is not something that's going to require what the divorce is going to require. Divorce is going to require what? We're going to need those two witnesses.
Yes.
The two arbiters.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
We're going to need all of that to come together. We're going to need maybe a period of separation. We're going to need all of these areas to come together. Annulment happens the moment, for example, you have realized that there is an impotency issue. No need to go to Maulana Sab and sit with Maulana and you know Maulana, what's your opinion, what's my opinion, what do we do, what did she say, what did he say, come back to me. No. When a person is impotent, and they were aware of their impotency, annulment takes place. Now let's look at the other way. If you have a case where you're not aware of an impotency. Yeah. You may be someone who, for example, either knows of their sexual prowess. Or you may be somebody who is a virgin in their innocence. But has never known of themselves to be in any spot of difficulty and so on. A couple of weeks into the marriage, that person's finding it extremely difficult. Difficult why? There may be stress in their lives. There may be there's even peer pressures. That, for example, in some communities, they will actually joke with you tonight. And sometimes these types of jokes in some cases are very sad. Insulting. And in some cases aren't showing a respect to that person's feelings with their partner. Some communities even ask for the cloth to see if the girl is still in her innocence. Now imagine that pressure that's there. Because I don't think many people realize that also when you consummate a marriage with someone who's still in their innocence, blood doesn't necessarily have to come out. No. Okay, and so there's some people who are under pressure in that impression. So you're tired in your wedding day and you're not able to consummate this relationship. A week later, you're not able to consummate this relationship. You move on, a month later, you're not able to consummate. In that stage, we advise that a person resorts to counseling. Resorts to those people who are specialists, maybe even take a time out with your partner to reflect on a different environment to where you are. Okay? So when you're looking at all of these, in that case, is that impotency leading to a divorce? No. Because in that case, that person himself is telling you that I am not aware of this. Now, you too may decide that this break is really causing harm to your relationship. Because I don't think there's any lady out there who's watching this show who wants to be the one who's in a relationship where her husband does not find strength when looking at her in their peak, for example. You know? Listen, there may be people now who may be in their 50s and may need the help of certain pharmacy drug dealers to provide them with a couple of tablets to help them gain their strength. But then there may be those in their 20s and you're wondering what's going on. You're in your 20s. You're at your peak, why is this happening? But I think in those cases, to hold on to your partner, to support them in this difficult time,
is the noble act.
Now, when I hear stories of those 6 years, for example, that's a difficult one to comprehend sometimes. When you hear somebody's been in a relationship 6 years, and they're finding it extremely difficult, this is something to, in some cases, praiseworthy, and then it's completely up to them.
Of course, alhamdulillah. We've had another message, as it were, a question. Fortunately, a sad occurrence. A sister, she didn't want to give her name, but she married someone in Islam, being Muslim herself. Fell in love. The husband changed, as it were, his aqidah and then stopped believing in Islam, as it were. Now, is she stuck in that marriage? What rights does she have to divorce him or not? Can their marriage be annulled?
Apostasy
In Islam.
is one of the ways or one of the conditions for a marriage which can be annulled right away. However, I may see it as a reflection of the example, and we may relate to the example of impotency.
Right.
I get married to somebody who's on shaky ground in terms of some of their religious beliefs.
Okay.
And I really don't mind if somebody questions the theological tenets of the religion of Islam. I don't have a problem with it.
No.
Anything done with respect is fine.
Yeah.
If I get married to somebody who really in the engagement period, I should have sussed out that they've got certain doubts about you should have sussed out that when you're having these discussions in the engagement period, try and discuss the things that really matter. Discuss the opinions on your closeness to God, on the love of God, on how you want to build the family and the spiritual life. Some will suss it out in the engagement. But let's say that a week into the marriage, you two are on your honeymoon and you're sitting on that beach in the Maldives, which I suppose is the archetypal place where, people... and you probably are not really going to be thinking about Islamic theology too much, but let's say you're sitting having your dinner and the person you're with turns around to you and says to you, you know what, I don't really believe that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, was infallible. I think his life, for example, that person might turn around and say, I think his life, is a life where mistakes may have happened. When that is said, is that necessarily an act of apostasy at that moment? Not necessarily. Because that person might turn around and say, listen, I respect the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, and I believe he's the final prophet of God. But I just believe there were a couple of occasions where a mistake may have happened. That person's not an apostate. Why do I say that? Because there are many Muslims who believe that, but they're not apostates. There are Muslims out there in the world who believe that, Satan may have affected the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, but God rectified the situation. And the famous, the book that came out later on called the Satanic Verses was based on those verses in Surah 53 of the Quran. So there are Muslims in the world who believe that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, made mistakes, but we don't call them apostates.
No.
We say that these are part of the millah, they're part of the ummah of the religion of Islam. Then there are others out there who, for example, maybe your husband turns around to you and says, you know what, you say we can't see God. I believe in a God who we can see, and he's got hands and he's got feet and he's got a beard and he's sitting on a throne. And I don't care what Shia theology says. I believe that every single verse that mentions kursi, or that mentions arsh, or that mentions yed, or that mentions ayn is literal.
Yeah.
When the person say that, again, have they become a murtad? Have they apostatized? No, they haven't. That person may be somebody who believes what a lot of Muslims in the world today believe, that God literally sits on a throne with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, next to him on the Day of Judgment, and that God has a beard, and that God has a shin, and that God, when he wants to, puts his feet into hell, and so on. So has he apostatized? Certainly differed with Shia theology, but no. Then I may have somebody who completely says, you know what, all this Islam is nonsense. I don't believe in any of it. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the prophets. I don't believe in the angels, and I reject the book. Now, at this stage, at this moment, again, there's the ones who are involved in the early days of their marriage.
Yes.
And there are those who are 21 years into their marriage with 3 kids. Some of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, some of the ladies were married to men who weren't interested in the religion of Islam, and therefore their marriage was annulled, because that person is, a Muslim woman cannot marry a non-Muslim man.
Yeah.
In the case of somebody who early in their relationship, their husband has said such a thing, just be a bit patient. May have been a really frantic, a crazy day. He's just lost it completely and said something like that. In the case of those who are married for 20 years as well, there's no harm taking the husband of yours at that moment and say, listen, let's sit with Sayyid Ammar Nakshwani, for example. Let's sit with Sayyid Fulan, Sheikh Fulan. Let's sit with somebody in the community who you can pose your theological questions to. If after posing your theological questions to them, there are still doubts, and you still don't believe in this. And by the way, I've been involved in 2 cases where this happened.
Okay.
2 cases. And although the wives were very adamant that their husbands stay, because there's obviously love involved, there's kids involved.
Absolutely. There's a lot to lose.
Listen, the Quran says, لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَلِيَ
دين.
دِينٍ. To use your religion, to me is mine. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Whoever wants to believe, let them believe, and whoever wants to disbelieve, let them disbelieve. لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ. There's no compulsion in religion. If the person has reached a conclusion that Messrs. Dawkins and Messrs. Hitchens and Messrs. Harris are providing them with an understanding of
The cosmos or something.
the cosmos, or how all of this originates, or morality, or it's completely up to them what they want to follow. You know, who am I to come and stop it?
Yeah.
But I would say don't straight away. Although yes, in Islamic law, someone who apostatizes, the marriage is annulled.
Right.
End of story.
Okay.
But I think on a practical level,
Okay.
there should be a case of more discussion and more dialogue.
Yeah, shukran. Thank you for that. So now we're going to go for a break in the next couple of minutes. Just before we go for a break, I do urge viewers, please, to call in and also donate to Imam Hussain TV. Imam Hussain TV is relying on your donations throughout the world. And in order for us to make good programs and good content and have great guests such as Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshwani, we do need actually donations to sustain this channel, inshallah. Just food for thought, Sayyid. Now we'll go to a break very soon. There's also been another concerning case that I've heard of recently, where a couple married, they're clearly in love, but one of them hasn't let go of the past, and his ex, as it were, is still communicating with them. We'll probably continue this after the break, but how does that leave the scenario going forward, as it were, if they're already married? And we may need to break you there.
Sure. We'll answer that directly after the break.
Yeah.
Is that the best way?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think so. Let's come back,
Let's do this
inshallah,
after the
after
break.
the next break, inshallah. So see you again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
O people, know that I am Fatima and that my father is Muhammad, and I will say this repeatedly, and I do not utter any falsehood. The sermon of Lady Fatima Zahra alayha salam on Fadak is one of the masterpieces of Islamic history, and inshallah during this series I want to delve deep and examine her words to find out what message she wanted to portray. So join me, Zainab Amy, for Lessons from Fadak, only on Imam Hussain TV this Fatima.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to tonight's live show where we're actually discussing Islamic divorce, and this topic is so deep that we shall inshallah be elaborating it in a further series next week and also subsequent weeks inshallah. Assalamu alaikum Sayyidina.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Dr. Ammar, just prior to the break we just set the tone as it were for a couple who are clearly in love, but the husband hasn't really let go of his past. His ex, let's make it easy, his ex-wife is still in contact with him, and his current wife, call it jealousy, just clearly does not like it. What issues are potentially going to arise, and where's it going to...
Well, it depends what level of contact we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, there are different levels of contact. There is somebody who maintains, a relationship of respect with, let's say, their ex-wife. It could be a situation where, you and your ex-wife have kids together.
Right.
You can't just all of a sudden expect the husband to abandon any communication. However, if the wife does, for example, see certain messages where the person is speaking to their ex-wife in a way which can lead onto something which could damage the relationship, then the wife has every right to speak.
Right.
You can't move on and marry somebody while you still entertain thoughts of being with somebody else at that time. Otherwise, just be blatant about it from the beginning.
Of course.
There are certain people who enter marriages and they should just from the outset say that, look, I have feelings for somebody else, but I'm going to try and make this work. So that person on the other side knows that, listen, if you've got feelings for someone else, let's not go ahead with this. However, there are some also, it requires a bit of patience with them as well.
True.
That they not necessarily going to do anything wrong, even if they have a communication with somebody who's in their past or in their, in their history. And I don't think a person should be too rash at that moment.
Right.
Should be open communication between the two.
Okay. We've got a case with a sister Batul, and she said that I live abroad, and she doesn't want to give any further details. However, she's living with the in-laws, and she's actually mentioned that she's forced to wake up approximately 4 a.m. When her dear father-in-law also wakes up and requests for breakfast to be made.
Yeah, that's mad.
And she's...
that's crazy.
She's actually alluded to the fact that it's becoming a bit of a nightmare, and, it's she's still newlywed, but she feels like a slave. And
she's got every right to say that. I don't know, there are some people out there who marry girls to become slaves for their parents.
Clearly.
And that's absolutely ridiculous. Not part of the teachings of the religion of Islam at all. I see it change now, but there are many out there who force their wives to literally cook, clean, everything for the in-laws. Now, before the marriage, I think if you do not make it clear that you are not necessarily one who wants to live with the in-laws, then sadly, this situation is a possibility. But when you hear that there are ladies, newlywed, who have to wake up when their father-in-law wakes up to go and make them breakfast. I can imagine this, don't get me wrong, I can imagine this in 1921 in a village in India. I can imagine this in a village, let's say in a part of Iraq somewhere.
But it still goes on.
When I'm being told that this still goes on, and The father and the mother-in-law believe that they have this right.
Yeah.
That you have come into our house, you clear this table, you clear the house, you clean the house. When we wake up, breakfast should be ready. I personally think that this is absolutely ridiculous.
Full.
And I believe that there are a lot of Muslim men out there who know that when their wife lives with the in-laws, they can do what they want, treat her as bad as they want. And the moment she starts to just say that, look, for example, I slept last night late, and your dad wants me to be up in a couple of hours, you want me to be with you when I'm sleeping this late, what do you want me to do? And they will tell her, listen, either you behave or I'll kick you out.
Yeah.
And there are many Muslim men out there. And that's why I've always said religiosity is not in the length of your prayer or the fast, as the Imams would say. Religiosity comes in the way a person's morals are, the way they behave with others. And if you're somebody who's behaving with your wife in this way, then as the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, his family made it clear, the best of you is the best to their family, and I'm the best with my family. When have you ever in your life read a narration from any of the Imams where they made their wife get up and cook for their families, where they made their wife get up and cook for the in-laws, where they forced their wives to live with their in-laws? Where is this from? If you're telling me in India your family's been doing it for 100 years, in Pakistan you wanted to continue the trend.
Yeah.
And some will say, look, the houses that we live in, it helps. Yes, there are people who live in mansions, 7, 8, 10 bedroom houses where you can have your separate quarters and live with the in-laws.
True.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
But then there are others who will cram their in-laws, like the daughter-in-laws, with the sons, and you may have them all living in the same house.
Yes.
Now, don't get me wrong, it can work, but it can also lead to a lot of oppression.
Of course. Yeah.
So poor Batul, the one who's asking this question, when she's saying that at 4 a.m., she has to be waking up to make breakfast for her father-in-law. Father-in-law, go get yourself a maid.
Yeah.
There's many maids out there.
True.
There are agencies. Let me just advise, maybe people don't know. There are agencies where you can go and get a maid. That girl that you took from the person's house, you have not taken somebody to be your slave.
No.
And if you find that you are now in your 60s and your 70s, and you can't move around as much, therefore that daughter-in-law's got to do everything for you, no, that's not Islamic.
No.
No, it's not. You're in your 60s and 70s, and if you're going to become a burden on somebody, and I know that this is very sensitive. Why? Because it's an honor for us to look after our parents.
Yeah, true.
It's an honor for us to be there for our parents the way they were there for us. But at the same time,
It's abuse.
I cannot abuse this to destroy a girl's feelings.
True.
The amount of girls who cry in the middle of the night, ladies who cry in the middle of the night, because of the way that they have been ridiculed and laughed at. And what's the excuse? But my dad or my mom's old. Your dad and your mom's old is not an excuse for you to oppress this girl.
Yes, absolutely.
So then when this girl wants a divorce, which I don't necessarily recommend because your husband is still somebody you love, and I'm sure this can be worked out. But the moment the girl wants a divorce, what does the community say? You know how bad she is?
She is.
You see these modern girls? What do you mean modern girls? It's not about modern girls. Ethics is ethics.
Yeah, true.
And I cannot be more passionate about this because I've seen so many examples in the Muslim community where we have slaves, not daughter-in-laws.
Wow.
Yep.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that deep insight, Sayyidina. We've got one question via WhatsApp that's just come through. I wanted to ask you regarding the topic of divorce. I had a 7 months marriage. During those 7 months, my husband was constantly believing that I was cheating on him, but I wasn't. He didn't want me to work, forced me to stay at home, and he used to beat me. One day it became really hard and I went to the hospital. I told my parents. They made me realize that this is not a safe marriage, and I asked for a divorce. I am right. This is a question. I am right. Can I ask him the divorce? He didn't give me any of my jewelry and all that I got for our wedding, and I didn't ask for it. Is it right that he can keep all of the material things that should belong to me?
This we're going to be discussing when we're going to talk about the khul'a.
Okay.
and the mubarat and the hakim al-shara and so on.
And
We're going to discuss this further.
Yes.
And what it seems has taken place over here
Right.
is what's known as the khul'a divorce, where because you are the one who's initiated this, therefore the dowry and maybe something extra has to be given back. However,
Right.
once again, it places a major question mark
Okay.
on the justice in relation to giving divorce to men in Islam.
Right.
I ask everybody who's watching this show, show me a verse in the Quran, a clear verse in the Quran, with no ambiguity,
Okay.
that says the right of divorce is for the husband
Only.
in Islam only. Show me a verse. I ask those out there, show me a hadith that says very clearly
Yeah.
the right of divorce is only for the man in Islam. When this lady, 7 months, has been beaten black and blue,
Yeah.
she has to wait for that prick's permission, who's beating her. She has to wait for him.
No.
I don't get it. I always believe in this idea that whatever revelation reaches a conclusion on, so does our intellect. And whatever intellect reaches a conclusion on, revelation would. But I also believe in intrinsic moral values and understanding of them by the human being, which we discuss in Usul al-Fiqh when we discuss mustaqillat aqliya and so
Right.
on.
Right.
Now, when we're looking at this area, how is it justice? We both enter a contract called marriage. We're both got 50-50 partnership, but you seemingly have all the decision-making skills, and the other one doesn't.
Doesn't.
So what is this contract then? How is it binding?
Yeah.
I'm not understanding. I know that there are people who show ayahs in the Quran involving words such as, and when you divorce them, when he divorced them. So they'll say, look, the haqq is with the man. I want you to show me a clear verse in the Quran. If not, in the world of hadith,
Okay. Okay.
show me a clear verse, or a clear hadith, sorry, where it says, right of divorce is only with the man.
Right.
And when you normally tell somebody about the right divorce for the woman, they'll say, well, yeah, you can have the khul'a divorce. No, not the khul'a. A woman has been beaten black and blue. And that woman has been treated abysmally. And she looks at that husband of hers and he's like, the religion that you love and the religion that I love says that when I decide
Yeah.
is when you can leave this relationship. Can someone please explain to me how it is just? Now, you know what reasons are normally given. So someone might give a reason such as, well, women are more emotional than men. I'd be emotional if someone's punching my face.
Of course.
I'd be emotional.
Yeah.
I'd be emotional if someone's kicking me at home and I can't tell my dad. I'd be emotional if I'm getting kicked at home and tell my dad, and my dad tells me, don't tell anyone because if people find out, then your daughters will not get married.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotional? I agree that I have been involved in cases where someone tells you, I want to divorce him now, I want to divorce him now, and you're like, are you sure? I want to divorce him now, I want to divorce him now. I've changed my mind, I don't want to divorce him. Change my mind, I do want to divorce him. I agree.
Okay.
That, listen, the mother who God gave the ability to raise us and give birth to us with those beautiful emotions, there'll be emotions in other ways as well.
True, true.
But is that enough for a person to say, that's why the men are not emotional? Men are not rash?
Yeah.
Men do not regret a moment where they may have called for a divorce? Then there are others who say, well, men are the maintainers of women. Because they therefore have to pay for everything, Allah gave them the right to divorce. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
It really doesn't make sense to me. What if the woman's maintaining the man?
Yes. True. And it does happen
Then
now.
there are women out there who, if it's not
Earn
for them, the
more.
mortgage is not getting paid.
Yeah. That's right. They earn more than some men.
Yeah. And so there needs to be a reevaluation of this area,
Right.
which I'm sure we can go into further when we begin to look at the different avenues that may be used.
Okay,
In the next show, But this whole concept that the right of divorce is for the man only in Islam, and that the woman has to go from office to office, Maulana to Maulana, father to father, mother to mother, community to community, and still beg. And people will say to the woman, you're emotional. I don't think she's going to let out her frustration because she's emotional. For her to have decided that she wants to leave a relationship, it's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Passionate response, I have to say. Thank you. Another message from WhatsApp. Now, this person's actually quoted the name of an alim, and I'm intentionally not going to read the alim's name. I've recently been through a divorce. I was married for 4 months. My wife just paid a UK alim £1,000 to process her divorce. No Sharia process was followed, and I received the papers for khulla. Okay? No reasons were provided for divorce. My wife made up allegations against me which were false. The alim didn't conduct any investigation. He accepted the wife's version of events as being true. No meeting, no nothing. I discovered she was in a sexual relationship with a non-Muslim man and lives with him. I approached the alim and informed him. He just ignored and said it would be a non-fault divorce, whatever that means. I had to approach a Sunni alim to get the divorce done properly. What is the Sayyid's view on such business taking places and alims or imams, as he's put, conducting themselves in such a fashion?
You could get good and bad in all professions and in all walks of life. I think the first role of anyone in this position is that they have to hear both sides of the story. Because if, say, for example, a lady has gone to a Maulana in the community and she's asked the Maulana for help.
Yeah.
Because the husband is treating her abysmally and the husband is arrogantly telling her, Islam doesn't allow you unilaterally to have the right for divorce. So when she's gone towards that Maulana, the Maulana can easily, for example, call the wakil of the marja.
Right.
Hakim al-Shara
Okay.
may have a representative somewhere, and that representative will listen to what she has to say.
And is that the norm, as it were?
Yeah, so because what happened in the past, when you're going through a very difficult time,
Yeah.
your husband's not maintaining you, and for example, there's no sexual relations. And you don't know what to do because you were told in the past that, you as a woman, it's very frowned upon for you to go looking for a divorce.
Yeah.
Now what you have is that you can clearly go to the rep of the marja. And the rep of the marja has a duty, and that duty is to call. Call who? Call your husband.
Right.
And ask him the question, what's happening here? Likewise, that Maulana, if he hears that you have been treated badly, the Maulana should call that person there and say to him that, listen, there's an allegation against you.
Okay.
What do we do about this allegation?
Right.
Talk to me.
Okay.
How do we verify? If you are doing something, let me advise you. I must admit that there are cases which are sad, where a payment annuls a relationship.
But can it actually happen behind the other's back without them knowing?
No. What really has to, unless that guy, the only situation I can think of,
Right.
she has said to the Maulana that the person doesn't maintain her and there is no physical relations between them. And the Maulana tried his hardest to contact this person
I see.
in every which way possible. Not, okay, let me make one phone call. No, I couldn't get through to him, divorced. No.
Okay.
Tried in every which way possible to contact him.
Right.
Where he could see, for example, that the person's read the WhatsApp message, 2 ticks, blue ticks.
Got you.
Even the one where you pretend that you haven't read it and it's looks grey, but you've read it. And, or the person's left voicemails and that person's not even replying. In that situation, the Maulana might turn around and say, well, you are probably right. The person's been away for so long. He is not helping out. He clearly is not maintaining you. And the Maulana may have been a rep of a particular marja who therefore is able to decide that this can, for example, be issued. But this is not the way to go about things. You know, normally you'll be able to get through to the person.
Right.
The bigger problem we face is
Yeah.
what happens when we get through to the person and the person suddenly becomes Angel Jibra'il.
Right.
Because sometimes you might get through to someone, he's the worst human being. But Salam Maulana, how are you? How's everything? How's the family?
Tip top.
And you're like, listen, is this, of course it's not true. I love my wife. I'm going to be with her through thick and thin.
Right.
And the moment he finishes that conversation, he goes and tells her, what did you try and do?
Yeah.
You see? You try to go behind my back. I'll tell the Maulana that. That's where I believe a question mark has to be opened up and raised and discussed concerning woman's right for divorce in Islam.
Okay. Okay.
The unilateral right given to men, I believe, only can bring about injustice. Yep.
So do you think it should be revised?
The question is, in its origin, was it ever meant to be for men only?
Okay. Okay. Good point.
Yeah, I'm no one to come and just say we revise things. Although in the world of mu'amalat being different from the world of ibadat, possibly there is always the question mark of a revamping or reform. But I think in this particular case, I think if you're looking for a verse in the Quran or in hadith, I know, you're looking at Lum'a al-Damashqiyya, Rawda al-Bahiyya, Shahid al-Awwal, Shahid al-Thani. There are traditions which are mentioned, which may be give an indication. For example, Imam al-Baqir divorcing his wife. And they say that, look, the fact that the Imam initiates it means the haqq of divorce is with the man. But his wife is a Nasabi, possibly, who has cursed Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And so she apostatizes in that moment and therefore hasn't really got anything to do with that. Then there are other traditions where they look at Imam al-Sadiq and his companions questioning the rights of a wife to go ahead with a divorce and whether these traditions are to be taken in some cases as sound, reliable or not. There are interesting discussions on this area.
Yes.
But I think it needs to be reassessed in the worldview of justice.
Sure.
In relation to a woman's right for divorce.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We've got another question. Now, this question ties in with another question that I was going to actually put forward to you from another person. I have been married for a couple of years, have no kids. My ex has cheated multiple times behind my back. He has also attempted to sexually assault my family member. Assault my family member.
Her ex has cheated.
Yeah. My ex has cheated.
So she's divorced him now.
Well, this is what I'm going to come back to now. My ex has cheated multiple times behind my back. He has also attempted to sexually assault my family member. Do I still need him to give me the divorce? We have been living separately for a year now. So essentially, in her mind, they're living apart indefinitely, but they need that piece of paper, I suppose, to say that they've...
Yeah, divorce proceedings.
But does he need to...
I don't know about his belief system. Clearly the person is morally not responsible enough to be in this relationship, and he clearly has no relation with his wife and is not maintaining the family. They've been separated for a year. This should be a formality for it to be...
and what can she do, though?
She goes to the rep of the marja.
Okay.
And the rep of the marja will make a call.
Right.
And is it true you've been separated for a year? Is it true that you're not in relations with your wife? You're not maintaining them? Divorce is done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Another question, then we'll go back to the content. Salam, quick question for the Sayyid. When a woman divorces and wants to remarry, but she has children, what is the ruling on who keeps full custody of the children? What is the right of the women and men in this scenario? Thank you.
We have in the coming part of this series what happens after divorce.
After divorce.
Financially, children,
Yes.
iddah,
Okay.
revocable divorce, irrevocable, all of this is coming.
Inshallah.
But generally, just to give a general answer, although these situations I will elaborate on further,
Inshallah.
That, if you're going to move on with another marriage, normally the custody of the children, age of 2, age of 7, son, daughter would go back to your ex. However, it's recommended that because of an attachment to the mother, that that you try and find a way in which they stay with the mother. I'll elaborate on that in the forthcoming
Okay,
shows.
inshallah, inshallah. So about 15 minutes ago, you passionately put forward, I must say, some positive light in terms of the sister who was actually getting up 4 a.m. and she was treated like a slave, and it just doesn't cut it, as it were. Similarly, we've had another sister who's contacted us. She's in love with her husband. They're very close. But there's been interference, the stereotypical interference, as it were, from the husband's parents. She can't cope, and she's descended into somewhat depression, as it were, and also starting to harm herself, which is very sad. The husband is totally oblivious, and she even hides it from him. Can she separate for a time? And if you can possibly just shed some light on this separation, is it recommended at all, and so on and so forth? So if we just backtrack a little bit, can she separate for a time, first of all?
Well, separation can be done at any time.
And what sort of separation is that in terms of parallel to Islamic living?
Yeah, so look, you're still in a relation with each other. Physically, you could still be intimate with each other.
Okay.
Well, you may...
But have to be, yes?
Sorry?
Have to be intimate.
Yeah, the rights are still there.
Right.
There is no such thing as I'm separated from you and therefore I don't want to get close to you. Although
Okay.
both of you probably understand that it's a delicate moment where you don't want to necessarily stress on these things.
Right.
Because you have other areas which you feel are more important that need to be resolved. Obviously, physically speaking, you sound like you're okay.
Yeah.
But there's other areas that need to be resolved.
Sure. So you're just having a timeout?
A timeout. And I think it's understandable. Rather than straight away saying divorce, see
Okay.
if there is a timeout period where maybe you can, have... If you look Quranically, God talks of, for example, arbiters coming in.
Yeah.
An arbiter from one side, an arbiter from
the
another.
other. Yeah.
These arbiters could be a Maulana, could be wise men of the community. They have a role in seeking to provide you with guidance. Or you may say, for example, Maulana, or you may say to an uncle of yours who's the elder of the family, that this person, his parents, the way they're treating me has made our relationship become bad.
Yeah.
And I do feel sorry for some guys where they have to balance that in-laws and the wife relationship and so on. The elder of your family, when the Quran is saying bring the arbiters, bring somebody of respect who can put a word in that, look, if you two love each other and you as a family are a respectable family, don't let it descend into this. Remember, it's not obligatory for a girl to live with her husband's parents. Respecting husband's parents, respect like any person in this world, you have to show tolerance, you have to show morals.
Sure.
But there's no such thing as I have to give your dad a cup of tea when he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, my humility, my love for you, my respect for the foundation of our children's grandparents. That comes into it. However, you can move out with your wife. The problem is some of the parents are troublesome.
True.
Why have you moved out? Why have you become like these modern families? It's not about modern family. My wife wants to walk around the house naked. She can't if dad's always around in the sink.
Yeah.
There are some, believe you me, they live in a house, believe you me, where sometimes the in-laws dictate when the two of them can be together.
Yeah.
There are
I've
some
heard
who the
cases.
in-laws knock on the wall, stop making noise. What do you mean stop making noise? What are we doing? Going to live 365 days a year? When we go to sleep, we read a book when we're sleeping next to each other? Of course there's going to be some noise made.
Yeah.
And this has caused so many divorces unnecessarily. Like she said, I love my husband, but my husband is reaching a situation now where he's saying, look, these are my parents.
Yeah.
And the people in my position, Maulanas, we always mention heaven is underneath the feet of the mother. And so the person's thinking, well, you know what, my mother's this, my father's this, but my wife is this. Now, what do I do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, separation is jaiz, as it were, or allowed. There's another one here which I'm just going to try and read out very quickly because I think we've just got about just under 10 minutes. Two questions. I've been married for 8 years. Me and my husband can't have children together because he has a problem and there is no treatment. Do I have a right to ask for divorce? Second question. If I decided to have a child and stay with my husband, the other options is to get anonymous sperm donor and have kids. Is this okay in Islam? So it's a good question.
Yeah. First question.
Do I have a right to ask for divorce?
Yeah, you've got a right to ask for a divorce. There's no doubt whatsoever.
Okay.
And I think the most appreciative will be your husband, because he's appreciated your patience.
Okay.
And he might be the one who shows kindness in this stage to say, listen, maybe move on in your life and marry somebody else. Marriage is not annulled at this moment,
Right.
unless he blatantly hid his impotency from you, for example. It doesn't look like doesn't really look like there's a sexual issue, but maybe pregnancy. And there are people who took 12 years to get pregnant.
Yeah,
Some 15 years. So it's not something that automatically becomes divorce. In terms of artificial insemination by donor is not allowed in Islam.
Okay.
Artificial insemination by the husband, the sperm of the husband, is allowed in Islam.
Only the husband,
The
not an
husband.
artificial donor.
Not from the donor. And the husband, if he is going to provide sperm, cannot masturbate themselves to provide the sperm. They would have had to have been pleasured by their partner, of course, for the sperm to be provided for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. They're starting to come in now quite fast. I was living under domestic violence by my husband for a year, and then moved to my parents' house. Since then, I have been asking for divorce from the known sheikhs and scholars, but none has helped me. It's been 7 months that we've been separated. What should I do in this situation? Now, I find as well, I've actually had that response relayed to me by a number of people, that some alims, Sayyid alims, Sheikh alims, are just not helping out as much.
Yes, I've heard this as well. I also saw how your earpiece just fell off, but I'll go past that. But I've heard that as well, and I've seen that, it can be difficult as well. Let's not make it sound like it's always easy for a Maulana to sort out a divorce. Many cases Maulanas can't win.
No.
If they give an opinion that one side's right, the others hate them for life.
Yeah.
You give the opinion that side's right, these lot hate you for life. And you have to see their faces on Salat al-Jama'ah, and Salat al-Jum'ah, and Wilada, and Shahada, and Muharram, and Shahr Ramadan, and they want you to resolve everything for them. What I do believe, I personally have an opinion, that when I see someone has beaten their wives, I'm straight away of the opinion that try and help that lady get her divorce there and then. There's no need for talking over this, because that person who can beat their wives with the bruising and everything. But I also have the opinion that there may be some relationships that come to an end. Now, I know that the Quran says mawadda and rahma. Mawadda, reciprocal love. Rahma is the mercy you show when you're getting older.
Right.
Yes. I understand that, but I also understand that some die out. There's no conversations anymore.
Right.
There's no romantic edge anymore. You're just there because you don't want the community to say that there's been a breakup.
Yeah, unlabeled.
Now, what do you do? It's really difficult. And so when you go to a Maulana, in some cases the Maulana will turn around and say, but if you break up, the kids may be affected and so on. So some Maulanas provide good answers.
Right.
Some might say, well, 7 months I've tried. 7 months is not crazy at all, because that Maulana might be saying that, listen, it's a 7-month period and I appreciate what you're going through, but it's a major life decision that you're making. And some don't realize, grass is green on the other side. There are many couples you look at and they look like, the couples that show their happiness the most in some cases are the most unhappy.
Yeah.
Then I think, secondly, it's important for us to understand that someone who's divorced in the community, it's hard for them to get married. The Prophet, peace be upon his family, the divorcee and the widow were two areas where Arabia found it difficult to forgive the divorcee and found it difficult to forgive the widow. Widow's done nothing wrong. Divorcee, they always imagine that, you don't want to marry a divorcee, for example. And so what you have is that the Prophet, peace be upon his family, married a divorcee and he married a widow. Our communities, if you're labeled as a divorcee, it's a problem. Especially for the ladies, the sisters in our community. Therefore, some Maulanas may not straight away say to you that yes, because they also know that the decision is a big one. It's a huge decision.
Okay.
Some cases the kids are looking at you and even look at the Mawlana and say, don't make it easy in some cases. So there's a number of factors involved.
Right, okay, fine. We've only got a few minutes left, Sayyidina. So I'm going to cram in a couple of questions. The last question via WhatsApp is, if you divorce your spouse more than 3 times, can you remarry the same one person? Now, divorce the spouse 3 times. If you can maybe just...
I will elaborate on the divorce, and 3 separate divorces in our next show.
Yes, I think that's wise.
The differences in the school in Islam.
Sure.
And the pronunciation of divorce. Many people ask me, the pronunciation of divorce, Arabic only, or can it be in a different language as well?
Okay.
What if I turn around to my wife and say, taliq, taliq, taliq in one go? Some schools in Islam say it's divorce. What does the Shia school? Next week's show, we're going to be looking at, you've reached the stage of divorce, legally, what takes place at this stage.
Right, okay. I think this is just going to be one last question, Sayyidina. So, we've got another question. If a wife is not being maintained, and her husband doesn't have sexual intercourse with her either, from a fiqh or theological point of view, what is the stance on this compared to that of Christianity, if there is one?
Well, Christianity, divorce-wise, you'll have...
Can she ask for the divorce? What's...
This again comes back. If financially he's not maintaining her, and he's blatant about it.
Okay.
Not someone who's going through a bad time economically, financially. No, he's blatant. Why should I maintain you?
Gotcha.
Go to your parents.
Right.
And there's no relations between them. There should be there should be relations between them. And should never be a period longer than 4 months where you two are not in a relation with each other, if you look at some traditions.
Yes.
If that person, there's no relations between his wife in that way, or he's not maintaining, and he admits this, the marriage is done. If he admits this.
Okay, okay. So what
the Mawlana, the Hakim al-Shara, would speak to him, he's admitted it to him, they then undertake for the divorce proceedings.
Okay, very quickly, we'll try and continue this last point, inshallah, next week. But there's a clear verse in with respect to arbitration, the Holy Quran talks about in Surah Nisa, verse 35. And I'll just very quickly read the translation. And if you fear a breach between the two, then appoint a judge from his people and a judge from her people, if they both desire agreement. Allah will effect harmony between them. Surely Allah is knowing, aware. So my question or point is this, that we'll hopefully inshallah continue this episode and this point actually into the next one. But is this arbitration right at the end? Very quickly, is it when there's a clear necessity?
Yeah, so you don't necessarily want to, in some cases, move from argument to divorce.
Right.
I think the wise of the community.
And I've intentionally quoted that just to make sure that people know that, you don't just take drastic action.
Correct.
Yeah.
The wise of the community should get together.
Right.
The wise of the family should speak with the wise of the other family.
Okay.
Sit down. Begin to retrace their roots. Begin to retrace their relationship and say, where are we heading now?
Yes.
Why has it reached this stage?
Yes.
And remember one thing. When you come to an arbitration, don't come in an angry mood.
Right.
Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, Amir al-Mu'min says wonderfully, don't make promises when you are happy.
Okay.
And don't make decisions when you are angry.
Right.
And the problem is, in many of these divorce arbitration cases, before we've even got to the Maulanas and everyone, you got 2 arbiters, we're already going into this discussion in a very bad mood.
Yeah.
If you make a decision when you're angry, Imam Ali he says, do not do that. And so I think what's needed psychologically, go into that. Istighfar, ghusl, wudu, dua, Quran, then enter it. Clear heart. Ya Allah, whatever gets me closer to you, let it happen.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
Go in there and try your hardest. I'm not saying this for all cases, because we mentioned there are some crazy cases, but then there are some cases where there's been a little problem. Bring the arbitration, go in there with respect, go in there with akhlaq. Yeah. Even if you two decide to end it, but maintain amicability, maintain that respect. so that the religion is represented in the best of ways and you represent yourself in the best of ways. Likewise, sometimes that person who has been brought as an arbiter, always try and make sure that that person is somebody who's known for their calmness and patience. And for having a lot of experience with these issues. That may not necessarily be the Mawlana of your community.
No, no.
It may be somebody who's been a chairman, a president of your community, somebody who's done a lot of counseling, those people tend to give good advice.
Yes.
Advice from the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But as you said wonderfully, the Quran said, get arbiters. Before you make any of these decisions, sit all of you, listen to their advice, reflect on your behavior. Maybe you look in the mirror and you realize that when you point three fingers at anyone, there's always two pointing back at you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Viewers, we've run out of time from Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshwani and myself, Muhammad Ali. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we'll see you again next week where we'll continue the topic of Islamic divorce and we'll propel this forward into the further steps that Dr. Sayyid Ammar was speaking about. Please also call in and also to do generously donate if you can on Imam Hussein TV. Imam Hussein TV does need your funds. The number to call actually is 0203 515 0199 and also WhatsApp 44079399 917163. Once again from both of us, Assalamu alaikum.
O people, know that I am Fatima and that my father is Muhammad. And I will say this repeatedly, and I do not utter any falsehood. The sermon of Lady Fatima Zahra alayha salam on Fadak is one of the masterpieces of Islamic history. And inshallah, during this series, I want to delve deep and examine her words to find out what message she wanted to portray. So join me, Zainab Amy, for lessons from Fadak, only on Imam Hussein TV this Fatima.
نه قوت در کمر دارم ابوالفضل علم دارم.
The hadith is Sharif Ma'soom Imam al-Sajjad, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given my uncle Abbas a maqam such that on the day of judgment all the shuhada and the siddiqeen will wish they had the maqam of Abul Fadil. And the Imam did not leave an exception for anyone within the kawn. The exception that we know is Ahlul Bayt through Ahkam Aqli.
I bring livelihood to many. I am the remedy. I am the cure. I clean. I purify. Many take me for granted, but without me, they cannot live. They travel far to see me, and many travel along with me. I come from the mountains, the high mountains in Turkey, where it snows, and civilization is a distant vision. I have traveled the whole of Mesopotamia, and I have seen man tear up its soil. I have seen man take, but not give. You need me. You need me in the morning. You need me at night. You need me with your firstborn. And at every death, I am there. When you eat or drink, know I was behind it. I don't need anything from you. What could you possibly give that would benefit me? I was Karbala'i before anyone ever stepped foot on this land. I was there and watched every prophet walk on its sands. You think you know the story of Karbala? I saw the story of Karbala unfold in front of me. I heard the children wail over me. I saw Imam Hussein seek me for his infant. I trembled when Abul Fadhil gathered me in his hands, and I wept as his lifeless body lay by my banks. I saw Imam Hussein's head being raised upon a spear. They burnt the tents. If only I could put the fire out. I am water. I am the Furat.